You could see in his eyes, nothing behind the eyes, dead behind the eyes, no soul, NPC, non-player character. He didn't have
Ladies
one.
again, start making better choices when it come to men too. We see the signs, we see the warnings. Of course we love them, but guess what? We got to love ourselves more too. So when he hit you once, let it go.
This wasn't chaos. This was calculated. A doorbell camera captured the moment that changed the entire direction of this case. A man appeared on an empty street at sunrise, running alone in an unusual silence. No one behind him, no cries for help, no clear signs of panic. Just steady footsteps, cold and controlled, as if everything had already been planned. What gave people chills was not the fact that he was leaving, but the feeling that he knew exactly what he was doing. And from that moment, the biggest question began to grow. Was this a reaction in panic, or the final step of a plan? Why did a man who once lived in the center of his own family become the center of a tragedy? What happened in those final hours before everything collapsed while outside it still looked like a normal day? And most importantly, why had the warning signs already appeared? But no one stopped it in time. This is not a story to judge who was right or wrong. This is a timeline of small details, quiet choices, and moments where, if just one thing had gone differently, maybe the ending would not have been like this. When you put every piece together, the scariest part is not the final moment, but the feeling that everything had started a long time before. And sometimes tragedy does not arrive suddenly. It moves closer in silence, until no one has time left to turn around. This video does not follow wild guesses or dramatic stories made only to shock people. Every detail mentioned here comes from legal records, official statements, and public confirmations from the people involved. No replacing the court's decision. No turning someone else's tragedy into entertainment. What we do here is look at the facts, rebuild the timeline, and understand how everything reached the point of no return. True crime should not be cheap curiosity. It should help us see the system behind an event that looks like it happened in just one night. The man at the center of this case is Shamar Elkins, born in 1,995 inches, Shreveport, Louisiana. His childhood did not begin with stability. His biological mother faced many difficulties and could not care for him long term. Another woman became the main support in his early years. This detail matters because it shows an uncomfortable truth. Even when someone once had support and care, they can still fall very far if emotional pressure builds for too long and self-control slowly breaks down. The content in this video is for informational and reference purposes only. Although it has been cross-referenced with reputable sources, some details may have changed or may not be entirely accurate. The cracks from childhood do not always disappear when a person grows up. Sometimes they stay there quietly waiting until present pressure touches an old weak point. From that moment, the past is no longer just a memory. It starts deciding how someone faces crisis in the present. According to public information from relatives, Elkins' marriage had been breaking down for a long time before this happened. Divorce records show this was not a temporary argument, but a long chain of conflict with silent pressure building over time. On the outside, it looked like a family going through a crisis like many other families. But behind that silence were warning signs that now make people look back differently. What made many people feel uneasy was not just disagreement or separation, but the fact that there had reportedly been serious warning statements, words that showed a dangerous emotional state where thinking was no longer focused on solving problems, but was moving toward losing control, as if wanting everything to collapse together. These are the kinds of signals that when people look back, they wish they had taken more seriously. Because tragedy rarely starts with one loud explosion. It usually begins with words that seem like just a moment of anger. Before we go deeper into the timeline, I want to ask you something quickly. Do you think this was a sudden emotional breakdown that happened in just a few minutes? Or a chain of actions planned long before? A decision made in anger or a plan quietly forming in the background? Comment just one word: impulsive or pilan. I really want to know your view, because those opinions help us look deeper into the psychology behind this case, where sometimes the truth is not in the final action, but in the warning signs that appeared long before it. Now we come to the most important part of the entire story, the timeline. No guessing, no emotion, just the sequence of time step by step to understand what really happened that morning. Sunday morning in Shreveport began like any other day, but in just over 1 hour, everything changed completely. At around 6:12 in the morning, the first emergency call was recorded from a residence connected to a serious domestic violence situation, forcing law enforcement to respond immediately. At first, it was only an alarm signal, but each minute after that showed the situation was much more serious. Around 6:35 to 6:40 inches, the morning police arrived at the first location. But instead of ending the situation, this was when the picture started getting heavier. New information kept appearing, showing that the event did not stop at just one place. By nearly 650 inches, the morning activity from another location was confirmed, not the same house, but another place in the city far enough away to make many people ask, was this really just a sudden reaction in a few minutes, or was it a movement with direction from the beginning? The physical distance between the locations and how closely the time points connected created a very different feeling. If everything happened in a short time, but still moved across multiple locations, then the idea of something calculated becomes harder to ignore. This no longer looked like one emotional outburst without control. It looked like a chain of connected actions with a clear direction. Then the final point appeared confirmation that there were multiple victims, and they were members of the same family, including young children. From that moment, this was no longer a normal conflict. It became a real tragedy. I want to stop here and make one thing clear. We do not need shocking descriptions to understand how serious this was. Respecting those who were lost is not a choice. It is the minimum responsibility when telling a story like this. After that, the story did not stop at just one location. This is also the part that made many viewers keep asking, was another woman involved? According to publicly confirmed information, the events that morning expanded to another location where Elkins had a connection with another woman in his personal life, along with the presence of children. This detail made the entire case much more complicated than a normal family conflict, because it showed that the impact was not limited to one home or one relationship. But the important point here is not turning this into personal gossip or emotional arguments about who was right or wrong in a relationship. True crime should not be a stage for curiosity. What matters is understanding how personal conflict, when left uncontrolled, can spread and pull innocent people into the same tragedy. The fact that more than one location was involved shows that morning was not one single reaction happening in minutes, but a chain of events with consequences growing more serious each step. And that is why many people started asking again, was this truly a brief loss of control? Or were there signs of a plan long before? Now back to the doorbell camera. This is the detail many people cannot stop thinking about. Why do I say he did not look panicked? Because when someone truly loses control, their behavior is usually chaotic. They turn around again and again, suddenly change direction, look for places to hide, make rushed phone calls, or show unstable reactions that are easy to notice. Panic always leaves behind confusion, urgency, and no clear direction. But here, what was described looked completely different. There were no signs of someone running in fear. Instead, there was one clear direction, steady movement, and almost no hesitation, as if he knew exactly where he was going and why he needed to get there. That unusual calm is what gave people chills, because it created the feeling that the most important part had already happened before that. These footsteps were not the beginning of chaos. They looked like the ending of a chain of actions already connected. Sometimes the scariest thing is not the explosion of emotion, but the silence after it. Many people ask whether there were substances, medication, or any outside influence involved behind this behavior. I want to be very clear, if there is no official conclusion from law enforcement or confirmed records, we do not have the right to claim anything. In true crime, unsupported guessing is the fastest way to turn analysis into irresponsible rumor. And when that happens, the search for truth gets replaced by curiosity. What matters is not forcing an easy explanation onto the story, but looking at what can actually be checked, recorded behavior, confirmed timeline, and warning signs that existed before. Sometimes staying with facts instead of speculation helps us understand the true nature of a tragedy, because truth is not hidden in the most dramatic theory, but in the small details that are real. This is the part that truly makes people uncomfortable, because in many domestic violence cases, tragedy rarely appears from nowhere. Before it, there are usually already signs: long-term conflict, warning statements, legal records, emotional pressure, building up controlling behavior, or unusual changes in emotion and daily actions. These signs are not always loud. Sometimes they are small and quiet, so quiet that people convince themselves everything will pass on its own. But the problem is this: warning signs alone cannot stop anything. They need a door for intervention, someone willing to listen seriously, a protection system fast enough, a process clear enough, and sometimes just one decision made at the right time to not ignore it again. There is one sentence many people do not like to hear, but it must be said: many tragedies happen not because no one knew, but because by the time people understood how dangerous it really was, the moment to act had already passed. And that is the most frightening part. Not surprise, but the fact that tragedy had been sending signals long before it actually happened. Now let us return to the 3 questions from the beginning of the video, and also the 3 most important ones. Why would someone turn against their own family? When the feeling of losing control, hopelessness, and the need for power come together, some people stop seeing relationships as something to protect and instead turn them into a place to release the collapse inside themselves. What happened in those final hours before everything crossed the line? Not one single moment, but a chain of actions moving through time across multiple locations, showing a level of seriousness far beyond one short moment of anger. And why could no one stop it in time? Maybe because the warning signs already existed in words, behavior, legal records, and quiet emotional instability. But the system for intervention was not fast enough, not strong enough, or simply arrived too late. That is the part of this story that stays with people the longest. Because the most important lesson in stories like this is not temporary fear or curiosity. It is understanding how tragedy is built from things that seem very small, one warning ignored, one unstable sign not taken seriously, one moment of intervention delayed by only a few days. True crime has value when it helps us understand the system behind the event, so we know how to stop it from repeating in real life. Not to judge others, but to understand that prevention often begins by seeing the problem one step earlier. And sometimes, just one action at the right time can completely change the ending of an entire family.